recreate it, people's responses are, well, it's not worth my time. Okay, well, so then why is some random person doing this?
Right. I talked to Marvel Studios. Now, I don't think people understand. So I talked to the Marvel Studios lead VFX guy, Jeffrey Ford, if anyone wants to look him up. I sent him the videos via text, and I told you how long, I asked him how long it would take for him to make it. And he said that, first off, if he had to make it, or the first thing he asked me was, these would be extremely really good, like professional fakes, if they're faked at all. And second of all, he said it would take him a minimum of, if you're doing 2 different perspectives, you're essentially creating 3 videos. You'd have to be able to do research on the satellite, where everything is, to make sure that it lines up properly, so that it can't be poked holes in. The minimum amount of time would be about like 6 months.
Yeah.
I think he said. So
and I'm guessing it'd probably take a lot more than that too, but that's just probably
for the actual
generous,
effects.
Right?
Yeah. So he said for him it would take about 4 to 6 months. So
we'll go ahead and share this clip here, because one of the things that we put together was we put together a list of all the things that be required. And I'll just run through this real quick, and you'll see that there's just no chance at this point. So you got between 4 and 72 days. It's an original work. There's nothing to copy from. So even the people that are trying to recreate it, they're recreating from something that they're looking at, as opposed to something that's like a complete original work. The volumetric clouds are accurate. To animate the cameras, how the clouds form at low altitudes, these cumulus clouds are perfect. There's no discrepancies anywhere in this footage. How to accurately light them when the zap goes off, what MH370 exactly looks like. It's a perfect recreation. The exact turning radius of the B777 while in descent is actually maxing out the capabilities. This is where as you see down here, the Top Gun Maverick artist came into play and said that they actually had to cheat in that movie made in 2022, because it was very difficult to recreate the exact flight capabilities of the airplanes. You have to know where it is, because it's right at the Nicobar Islands at the right time. You'd have to build the coordinate shift program into the overlay. You'd have to animate those coordinate shifts perfectly as well. What the weather was like, because we looked at the weather satellites and it matches the weather satellite situation. You'd have to know how to accurately create the exhaust or the smoke that we see, as well as the orbs, as you'll see down here, pass through the smoke, and they're accurately distorted when they go through it, which is one of the hardest things to fake. You'd have to know what the thermal looks like that would fool the experts. You'd have to have knowledge of the military classified equipment. You'd have to know that they use the Citrix session, and for some reason, build a Citrix session into your fake video. You would have to know that the frame rate discrepancy, to have the 24 frames per second on the mouse. You have to know what kind of specialized mouse they're using when they're moving the screen around that does move the coordinate shifts. We've linked this to a Plural View 3D video, which has a special type of mouse associated with it. You'd have to know what the satellites are in operation, what the false color IR looks like. You'd have to know how to create the 3D proven stereoscopic imagery you see. You'd have to know, again, how to animate those orbs correctly in that particle system that we saw for the forward-facing engine.
Absolutely.
You'd have to know the MQ-1C drone, the payload. You'd have to know where that payload is to get the exact angle. Then, again, how not to use a 2D visual effect in a 3D environment from a low-quality 90s video game. But perhaps the most important and interesting one is you'd have to know that we would never find the plane, not even 9 years later, because if we find a plane, the whole hoax breaks down. So ultimately what we're